Hello, friends. I'm Abby, and today I am starting a brand new reading vlog. Now, it is Halloween season, it is spooky season, and I wanted to do a reading vlog that featured a type of supernatural or paranormal entity. And I decided to look up titles on Goodreads and figure out which Halloween word shows up the most in my TBR. And by far, the most popular supernatural being that shows up is a witch. And last year at this time, I read The Year of the Witching, which is one of my all-time favorite books. So I decided, you know what? We are going to do a witchy reading vlog. So I have 4 books with witch in the title that I'm planning on reading for this vlog. So the first book that I plan to read this month is Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart. This is not like a spooky season story, but it does feature these 2 women. They are young girls, and it is set in this new fantasy world where they are both on separate sides of this like big war. Like basically they have dueling families for the leader of this world that they live in. And the girls decide to team up to take down one of the leaders so that they can have peace in this realm. And it sounds to me like it's going to be enemies to lovers. I've seen people describe that this is bloody and features pirates, that it has a beautiful and fantastic magic system. So I guess we'll see what happens with that. The next one is A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. This is described as like Twilight for adults, and you know that I was ready. This is another start to a series, just like Witches Steeped in Gold. Then we have The Once and Future Witches, which I believe is kind of a historical fantasy story. I don't know for a fact that it's fantasy. I guess I'm just guessing. But it is about, I believe, women getting the right to vote. I don't know. It's gotten great reviews, so I just decided to go with it. And then the 4th one actually isn't out yet, so I don't have my hands on it, but it will be Payback's A Witch. And this is actually an adult romance novel that I believe is supposed to be kind of cozy. It is sapphic, and it is going to feature a witch who I think teams up with this group of other girls. They've all been wronged by the same man, and they decide to cast a spell on him for revenge. And in the process of them all teaming up, 2 of the exes fall in love. So I'm very excited for that one. I cannot wait for it to come out. I'm going to get it so fast. I have it on request from the library, but I don't know if it will come in quickly. I don't know how long it will take to come in, but hopefully it'll be out this month. And if not, then I will find a way to buy the ebook or buy the physical book so that I can read it. So that is my plan for this witchy reading vlog. So I'm going to get started reading Witches Steeped in Gold. It is October 3rd today. Very spooky outside, very gloomy and dark. Happy spooky month, everyone. Okay, I'm back almost immediately after that because I started Witches Steeped in Gold and I just really wasn't liking it. Like I just really was confused. Like I got about 80 pages in and I still had no idea what was going on. So I decided to put that one aside for right now. But I also am going to add 2 books that I had originally, because I was going to read Witches Steeped in Gold, which was like 500 pages. I didn't put these on my original vlogging TBR, but I am going to add them because I think both of these are going to be quicker, and I think that I'll have time to read them now that I potentially will not be finishing Witches Steeped in Gold. I might come back to it, but I think 80 pages in, and I was thinking I'm going to have to start this book completely over because I have no idea what's going on. Like, it just was so complicated and things just weren't explained. There were words thrown out that I just did not know what they meant, and it just took way too much mental power for me to commit myself to this month, honestly. So I am adding a couple books The first one is Witches, and this is a horror comic. This is the first in a series, and I saw this on somebody else's channel. I don't remember who now, but I thought, you know what? This would be a perfect like in between read, a nice little like very short comic. It looks terrifying. It's blurbed by Stephen King saying it's fabulous, a triumph. So I thought, you know what better thing to add to a witches reading vlog than a book called Witches. And then I'm also adding Ava Evergreen, Semi-Magical Witch by Julie Abe. This is a middle grade witch story. People have described it as similar to Kiki's Magical Delivery. But this is all about Ava, and I believe that she is determined to prove herself as a witch, but she is not very powerful, and as she uses her magic too much, she falls asleep. And I think this is just kind of a cute, wholesome story about Ava trying to find where she fits. So I think I'm going to add those to the TBR. But I just wanted to update you and let you know that I am DNFing Witches Steeped in Gold for the time being. Not how I wanted to start this vlog, but it is what it is. And then I started The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. So I'm not too far into this. I will give you a better synopsis once I am, but this is what I will actually be starting and vlogging. Despite the chaotic start to this reading vlog, I'm actually making quick work of The Once and Future Witches. So I am about a third of the way in, and this book is all about these three sisters, Juniper, Agnes, and Bella, and they live in the 1890s, I believe. And the tagline for this book is, "There are no witches left in the world, but there will be." And this book follows these three sisters as they go through 1890s New Salem and are trying to bring witching back into the world, and also simultaneously tying into that, bringing women the right to vote. So this book is atmospheric and eerie. It reads very historical fiction, like Victoria era writing. But all three girls are so different, and they fully encapsulate this maiden mother crone idea. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm loving the writing. I'm loving the storyline. I'm loving the feminist ties and the idea of these women in power. And it's just so good. Like, the writing is good, the characters are good, and I'm fully invested in what's going to happen. So at the point in this book that I'm at, we're getting more information about these sisters, what separated them, what brought them to Salem in the first place, because at the very beginning of this book, the first chapter, the three sisters meet again for the first time after 7 years, and now they are all women and are very frustrated with the way the world is, rightfully so, and are fighting with this women's group to bring women rights to vote. On top of that, they are all witches. And that is something I wasn't sure if this was going to have literal supernatural witches or if it was going to be more of kind of the way that women in historical fiction books are often portrayed as witches if they are powerful. I wasn't sure if that was going to be the case in this or if there would be literal witches. And I'm happy to report that there are literal witches in here. Like, there are spells, there's magic stuff happening. It is so atmospheric and beautiful. And I'm so excited that I picked this up. So I'm going to keep reading this. I have had the absolute most crazy week at work. October as a school counselor is insane. So pray for us. We are doing our best, but we are tired out here. I'm going to get back to reading this book and making some delicious, I'm going to make a half chicken, half shrimp Alfredo for dinner tonight because we are kind of scrounging with whatever scraps we have, but we have the stuff to make Alfredo. We have the stuff to make the chicken and the shrimp all tasty. And we have fettuccine noodles left over from our pandemic stash. So I'm very excited to make that for dinner. And I'm excited because it's our last box of pasta that we bought in March of 2020 when the pandemic started. We bought so much pasta because we weren't certain how long the shutdown would be and whether we would be allowed to leave the house. And so we had copious amounts of pasta in our house, and we are now at the end of our pasta supply. So I'm very excited to use up that pasta and read this very atmospheric and lovely book about witches and women seeking power. It is Friday, and it has never felt better to be home from work than it does on this Friday. I did not sleep well last night because I had a migraines, which meant that I didn't read as much of this book as I wanted to, but I'm halfway through right now, and I thought this is the perfect moment to stop and update you because it is so good. This book is absolutely dripping in atmosphere. Like, there are so many beautiful descriptions. Like, this book makes me feel like crunchy leaves, like papers rustling. It feels so atmospheric and witchy. It has kind of that nature witch vibe, like cottagecore witch, old apothecary shops, like walking into a an apothecary shop filled with different tins and glass jars full of different spices and secret ingredients. That is what this book feels like, and I am obsessed. I love all three of the main characters. There are a few romances brewing right now, and I think that those are really sweet. There is such a beautiful emphasis on women getting a chance to become their best selves and not necessarily being like super powerful, like stand up and fight the patriarchy women, but all types of women. And it also is bringing in an interesting discussion about women of color during this time period and how in the 1800s, even when white women were getting the chance to be suffragists and fight for their right to vote, black women were still kept separate. And they were considered separate but equal, according to the women's groups. But women of this time who were black or not white were not getting the same rights. They were not getting equal rights, and they were being cast aside so that white women could make their way forward. And that emphasis in this is just really beautiful. We are getting so much magic, and it started out very innocently and very small magical moments, and now we're getting these big, beautiful demonstrations of magic that I think are just gorgeously explained. The writing in this is fantastic. I've never read an Alex E. Harrow book, but I've heard that her writing is this kind of lush prose, and I'm loving it. This is exactly what I wanted. And I can't wait to keep reading it because I just need to know what's happening. We're halfway through the book right now, and it feels like the climax. So I'm very interested to see what happens in the last half of this book because I think that although this definitely is a climax, it's not going to be the pinnacle of the story, and I can't imagine what is going to happen. I cannot wait to get to it. So tonight, we are settling in. We're having a wonderful fall night in to celebrate this beautiful fall weekend. So Brent and I are going to stay home. We are ordering some food and maybe sit outside for a while. It's still hot here. It's not cold yet in the evenings, but I think we might sit outside and enjoy kind of this cooler afternoon, evening moment. So I'm feeling pretty good. I'm excited about the Once and Future Witches, and I'm excited to finish it and see what happens to these characters because Juniper, Agnes, and Bella are so special to me. So I can't wait. So Brent and I decided to make a fire outside because it is a nice, beautiful, clear night. And I decided to pick up Witches. So I plan to read this while I'm out sitting by the fire. We have some lights outside. And for Summerween, I read Fangs by the fire outside. And I think that this is just going to be like a pretty quick read. It is a comic rather than a graphic novel, but I tend to read comics pretty quickly as well. Not as quickly, but fairly quickly. So I probably won't finish this tonight, but I'll at least start it. And I don't really know what this is about. It says when the Rooks family leaves the remote town of Litchfield, New Hampshire to escape a haunting trauma. They're hopeful about starting over, but something evil is waiting for them in the woods just beyond town, watching from the trees, ancient and hungry. And this is an adult horror comic, the start of a series. So I've heard that it is pretty gory and gross. The art style isn't necessarily my favorite, but it's not my least favorite either. I love some of the colors. It looks really cool. So I'm going to read this outside by the fire, and I will update you when I'm about halfway through. I don't know if I'll get there tonight, but I'm going to start this out by the fire.
In a previous vlog, did you include that I fixed our mailbox?
Good afternoon. It is the next day, and I thought I would update you. We had a beautiful night last night, and then this morning I had my therapy appointment, and then I went to a wedding shower for Brent's cousin, and it was beautiful and gorgeous and so much fun. It was great to see family again, and I wanted to update you on my reading because I'm planning on reading a little bit this afternoon, and then I am going to go to another wedding shower today, and it is for one of my sweet, sweet friends, and I'm so excited for him, and I'm about to go get ready for that. So I'm going to read a little bit this afternoon, and then tonight we're having this like birthday wedding shower combo bonfire 90s moment. Can't wait. But I wanted to update you because I am about halfway through Wytches. I've got about halfway through this last night while sitting by the fire. And listen, I read some reviews for this that made me a little like wary of picking it up. People were like, it's not that spooky. It's not that scary. They promised it would be the most horrifying thing you ever read. And like, that's not true. Which like, yeah, this isn't the most horrifying thing I've ever read. But the artwork in this is stunning. And the writing is actually very good. Like, I'm curious about what's going to happen. Sometimes in comics, I find myself admiring the artwork, but not necessarily caring about the story of it. And this, I care about the story. It's very confusing right now. There's stuff happening that I'm waiting for answers for. And I'm just really enjoying it. On top of, like, let me find this page. It's not a spoiler, so I feel like I can show it to you. Like, look at this page. Isn't it stunning? It's like the blues and the reds, just absolutely gorgeous. It doesn't look as beautiful on camera as it does in real life, but I think it's beautiful. And there are moments where the pictures are just horrifying. Like in this picture, you can see like eyes and like beings in the forest. Just absolutely terrifying. And I'm definitely very creeped out by some of the stuff happening in this. Like, I found myself gasping and wondering what was happening. So I'm very excited to see where this goes. I will hopefully finish that sometime very soon. And I am also a little further along in the Once and Future Witches, and I'm still loving it. This book, let me update you on some of the stuff, some of the elements of it that are great. There, first of all, are lots of fairy tale elements added into this. And on top of like this Avalon, like Arthur, I don't want to say retelling, but elements that are added in, obviously because it's the Once and Future Witches, like the Once and Future King. The Once and Future Witches is referring to the Lost Witches of Avalon, the last three, the Mother Maiden and Crone. And on top of that, they are getting a lot of spells from old children's tales. So they're introducing and incorporating fairy tales into their magic. And I love it because not only are they fairy tales that I recognize and that I appreciate and love, but they are reimagined as if instead of the Brothers Grimm, it was the Sisters Grimm, and the stories are much more feminist based. Like, they are less men saving women and more women saving women, or women finding ways out of their situations. And sometimes men are involved, but for the most part, it's women being strong women. And I'm loving that aspect of it. And something else I'm really appreciating about this book is that it is a book about the appreciation of books, which I didn't know. It's not marked, I don't believe, as a book about books. But there is an emphasis on libraries and books, knowledge being power, and one of the main characters, Bella, is a librarian. And so it's interesting to see her being brought into this. And I mentioned at the beginning of the story that the three characters perfectly represent the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And throughout the story, we're seeing that kind of stereotype of maiden, mother, crone being flipped. And we're getting views of these women as whole people rather than just the stereotypical like story character arc that they're pinholed into at the beginning of the story. So the writing in this is fabulous, and I think Alex E. Harrow is doing gorgeous things with these ideas, and I cannot wait to finish it. So I'm taking my time with these books. I'm enjoying them. I'm slowly getting through them. And on days like this, where I don't have a whole lot of time to read, it is nice to just get to take a break and reminisce on some of the stuff that I've read so far and enjoy it and think about why I like it so much. So I'm excited. I might read a little bit more today, but I probably won't update you because I probably won't read a whole lot more before the end of the day. So I will see you guys when I see you.
Okay, outfit check for this 90s party I'm going to. We have crop top, we have denim overall shorts, and my flannel, and my high pony scrunchie. So we are ready to go, feeling our most 90s vibes.
Hi, I am about 100 pages away from the end of The Once and Future Witches, and I'm loving it. I just have so much I want to talk about this book, and I just feel the need to continue gushing over how beautifully it's written. It is just so stunning in its writing. It is very like lyrical and purple prose, so if you don't like that, you might not enjoy this, but I love this kind of writing. It makes me really feel like the world is being created around me, and it makes me appreciative of all of the beautiful and eloquent phrases that the author is coming up with and putting onto the page. And this book is about words and how important language and passing down your stories can be, and I think that that translates so well into this book. Something else that I'm really enjoying about this book is that it really is showing how you don't have to be some like superhuman person or like a chosen one to make the right choice and to make a choice that's better for the world. You just have to have the will, and they make such a beautiful, I think it's set in such a perfect time period, because in this time period where women were actively fighting for rights and the right to vote especially, there is an election going on in this that would greatly affect women, and they don't have the option to vote or to make their voices heard. And it is just the perfect setting for a book about witches coming into power, and it shows that you don't have to be a hero. And if they take the way away from you, like if they take away the words, if they take away your way to power, then they cannot take away your will. And it really places this idea of the will inside of us is our own, and they can try to break it, but it is something we hold on to. And I think that that was very beautiful in this. I also am finding myself really connecting to all three characters. I think every character in this book is relatable, even the ones who make choices that are against what the main three sisters are choosing. I think that it makes total sense, and it's so relatable to be afraid to go against the status quo. Like, I think that that is a very reasonable thing, and the arguments they make for it, I think, make a lot of sense, and I can relate to them because it can be absolutely terrifying. But one thing I'm loving is Agnes is getting this like beautiful character arc where she has been so against everyone. And I don't know if I mentioned, but at the start of this book, the three sisters have a very broken relationship, and throughout this whole book we're seeing them come together and reignite that relationship, their sisterhood. And Agnes has this kind of metaphorical circle she's drawn around her heart. She says that you can't get hurt if you don't let people into that circle. And at this point in the book, she's finally starting to let people in and seeing that even if you get hurt, that means the more people you let in, the more people will be there to help you if you do get hurt. So I think that Agnes and her character story, her character arc is just a really beautiful one. There is a sapphic relationship in this that I didn't really expect. I love that addition because it adds an additional element to this kind of women choosing wicked ways. It is very magical right now. They are like getting familiars, there are animals popping up. It is very connected to the earth and this sisterhood of women, not just the three sisters, but the whole sisterhood. Stunning. So I plan to finish this book before I update you next. I have rehearsal tonight for the show I'm running Lights, so I'm very excited. It has been so fun to be back involved in theater, and I needed a break from performing for a little bit. I was so exhausted. So I'm happy to be involved in the show without having the pressure of performing. So I am very excited to go to rehearsal tonight, but I plan to read a little bit before I do. Okay, so I have finished The Once and Future Witches, and I'm giving this 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. It was atmospheric, filled with magic. It was exactly what I was looking for. And the good news about this, although I think it was perfect to read it at this time of year, it is one that could be read at any time of year because it focuses on magic in the everyday, not specifically like witches in Halloween time. So if you're looking for a witch book to pick up throughout the year, this one might be the one for you because I truly loved it. The writing was amazing. The characters are amazing. The resolution of the book was really well done. I love that there are romances in this, but that they are not the main focus. The main focus is sisterhood and womanhood. It was just a good time and a book that I was happy to take my time with and sit with. So I loved this. I'm giving it 5 stars. So the next book I'm picking up for this vlog is A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. And this book I don't really know anything about, but I've seen it described as a dark academia adult Twilight. And I've heard that you have to kind of get past insta-love at the beginning of the book. And I don't mind insta-love as a trope. It doesn't necessarily bother me. In fact, my anxiety heart is sometimes like, yep, let's skip right to where you guys are in love because I can't deal with the tension leading up to it. So I'm going in expecting insta-love, and I hope that that will make my experience reading this wonderful. I can't wait to read it, and I'll update you on a better synopsis once I get into it, but I think that this will be the perfect book to read in October. Hello. So, I wanted to update you on my reading. I have started A Discovery of Witches, but I've only gotten through like 60-something pages. This was much more of a dense start than I expected. Not that I'm not enjoying it, because once I got past the first chapter, now I'm like really invested. But I wanted to update you because I'm now about a third of the way through Payback's A Witch, which is the audiobook I'm listening to this week. And I'm really enjoying it. I expected it to be basically just a contemporary romance with maybe a tiny hint of magic and to follow like a basic contemporary romance plotline. So, while it reads very contemporary, it does have a little bit of magic, and it is following a pretty typical contemporary romance plotline. It is so much different than I expected. The writing is more atmospheric. The relationship is kind of taking a back seat. It is not the main focus of this book, which I think is really cool. The main focus of the book, I haven't really explained it, is that there is this girl, and this woman, she left 10 years ago, she left her town, her hometown, which was this magical town, and she was raised as a witch. Her family are all witches, and everyone in this town is a witch. They are descended from 4 main witches who founded the town, and she comes from the weakest line of witches. So when that fact is like really made known that she will never be eligible to like rise above her station just based on the history of her witch family, she decides to leave. And not only is it that she can't rise above that station, but it's pointed out to her while she gets her heart broken by this man who basically he is the strongest witch family's like next predecessor. So she is having a hard time with coping with that, so she decides to leave. She leaves this small town, and once you leave the town, your magic starts to fade. So she's been gone for 9 years, and her magic is almost all gone. But she returns home for this kind of magical trial that happens every 50 years, and it determines who the next leader will be. And there are basically the next in line for each house will get to compete, and whoever wins the competition will get to take over and lead the town, basically be the town mayor. And the guy that broke her heart is one of the contestants. Her best friend's twin brother is a contestant, and this girl, Talia, is a contestant. And the girl who returns home, Emmy, she is going to be the judge, basically. Her family line has never been able to compete, but they are the judges of the competition. So she is judging this competition between her best friend's twin brother, the guy who broke her heart and is an absolute butthole, and the woman who she like kind of is starting to have feelings for. But the reason it's called Payback the Witch is because Emmy, her best friend Lyndon, and Talia have all had their hearts broken by this guy, Gareth, who is basically like a shoo-in to win the competition. So the 3 of them kind of get together and form a plan to get payback against him for being an absolute jerk. So now that you know the premise, the writing is very atmospheric, as I said. It has such strong, like, small town witchy vibes. It kind of feels like walking through Halloween Town, the movie, where people are like going into magical shops. There are magical libraries. There's a store where you can buy like little trinkets that are magical and help with witches. And it's just a really beautiful town. And I think this book is perfect to read this time of year. It's definitely like giving me some fall cozy vibes. So the romance itself is taking a back seat, which I don't necessarily mind because now it's just kind of reading like a fantasy romance instead of a romance with a little bit of fantasy tucked in there. So I'm actually really, really enjoying it, and I'm flying through it. It's a pretty quick read. Like I said, it reads like a contemporary romance, so it is pretty quick to get through. So I am reading that. A Discovery of Witches. I can now tell you a little bit more about, but I'm only 65 pages in. So this book is all about this girl, Diana. She is a professor at Oxford University, and she knows that she comes from a line of witches. But she doesn't really want anything to do with her powers. She wants to kind of leave it all behind because she had some negative experiences in the past with her magic. But this book starts with her trying to call up some manuscripts at this library that she spends every day at, basically doing research. And she wants these manuscripts to look into more of her research, which is in alchemy. And she asks for these manuscripts, and a magical manuscript pops up. She immediately sends it back because she doesn't want anything to do with it, but it has its presence in the library, and her pulling it up and finding it has now attracted demons, vampires, and other witches, and she is really struggling because she wants nothing to do with that life. She doesn't understand why they won't just go get the manuscript themselves and why she has to do it, but this manuscript is supposedly lost. It has been lost for years and years and has never been seen since it went missing, and she was able to find it kind of on accident, so everyone believes she's the one who will bring it back. So it's pretty crazy. I have not really gotten into any romance yet. I know that I described it as insta love. I think that the romance is definitely like the basis being set. We'll see what you think about it because I'm super excited, but like I said, it took me like a couple chapters to get into it. Now that I'm into it, I am feeling it. I love Diana as a character. The writing is so typical dark academia, like really, really love it. And I think that there is a pretty good anxiety rep going on in the book so far. I'm kind of eager to see what happens in that because we haven't seen much of it other than her explaining how she copes with anxiety. So I guess we'll wait and see what kind of anxiety rep we're actually getting. I'm going to get back to reading because I want to make a little bit of a dent in this before I have to go to the show for tonight. So I'm going to keep reading this and see how far I can get.
Hello. Sorry the lighting is so terrible, but I am up in the light booth for the show that I am running lights for, and I just wanted to update you about Payback's A Witch. Sorry if you hear band instruments in the background. But I am absolutely loving it. I plan to finish it today, and I will give you a better update once I finished it. And it won't be like in this super quiet, like noisy background tech booth. But I wanted to update you because the romance, there was a like fairly steamy scene, but it hasn't like really flourished yet. But this book is much more of like a coming home story and returning to this like magical town than a romance. But I'm really enjoying seeing the main character, Emmy, deal with kind of the repercussions of her running away from her problems years ago. How running away didn't really fix the problems she was looking to fix and instead just took more away from her life. And now her and Talia, the romantic couple, are struggling with when all of this is over and they finally get their payback. Is Emmy going to stay and live with these powers and kind of face her past demons, or is she going to go back to Chicago? Because she's really struggling with, you know, she got away and considers that her freedom. She started her life over again. And she thinks that coming home would be kind of a failure. And everyone is trying to convince her that coming home is not a failure. It doesn't mean you've messed up. But I'm loving it, and I can't wait to finish it.
Good morning. It is Sunday today, and the show is over. While doing shows is always a fun experience, I'm happy that this one is over because I was tired. So, let's talk about some books because I, as you know, was on my way to finishing Payback the Witch, and I did finish it. I kind of read this in like two different ways. I read ebook sometimes, audiobook other times. I think the audiobook for this was really good, so if you are looking for an audiobook, this might be one to pick up. I gave this book, hold on, I'll scoot over so I can put the thumbnail up. I gave this book 4 stars. It would be kind of like a mid 4 stars. Not like a 4.5, but maybe like a 4.25 if I was being super specific. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought that it was a fun story. It was full of magic. The writing was very descriptive and atmospheric. I just think this book was marketed differently than what I expected. I expected, from the way this book was marketed, a romance novel with some magic. Kind of like In a Holidays by Christina Lauren, that kind of holiday romance story. I thought it was going to be like a romance between witches set at Halloween. That isn't necessarily what we got, and I think that because of that, my expectations were off going in. And if I reread this, or if I went in with the right expectations, kind of expecting a magical payback revenge story with a little bit of romance thrown in, I would have liked it more. I really loved it. I enjoyed it. I love the way that this book wrapped up. I think the conclusion to the story was great, but it did feel like it was trying to pack too much, like, romantic traditional storyline into a revenge story, and also includes some fantasy and magical elements. There's like, people have referred to the competition in this book as like the Triwizard Tournament, and I think that that is a kind of a great example. I just wish that this book had been marketed as a fantasy, because it could have been longer, it could have had a different, it has similar writing to like traditional fantasy stories. It has so much world building, but the romance took a back seat. And I think that if you're going to market it as a romance, the romance needs to be front and center. But I do think that this book would be perfect for anyone looking for a Halloween kind of small town magic-y romance. It does take place in the autumn, so it was very atmospheric, and I really enjoyed it. So then let's talk about A Discovery of Witches, because I'm now a fourth of the way through this, and I'm invested. I have been bitten by the Discovery of Witches bug. I get it now. I actually don't mind Insta-love, as I've said, so their romance between Matthew and Diana that I can see blossoming right now is everything. Like, I love that he is kind of clinging to some traditional values. She is a new challenge for him, and they're just kind of vibing, like figuring each other out. There's also a wonderful like fantasy element in this going on. This world is set in like a modern world. There are demons, witches, humans, and vampires all living together in one society, and if too many creatures gather in one place, humans start to notice. And because Diana has called this manuscript up and brought attention to it, all of these creatures are now gathering to this library that she works in, and it's starting to cause problems. So I think that this book is really, really interesting. The writing is great. It is definitely very adult. Like, sometimes I have to go back and reread some things, especially the descriptions of like alchemy stuff, but I think that that is really interesting. I'm loving seeing the discussions about kind of historical ideas of creatures and what parts are true and how the true parts kind of shifted into these stories about them. So far, it is just really enjoyable. I think there's going to potentially be a murder mystery brewing, and I think that Diana is so much forcing her own ideas about magic, like, out. She's like, I don't want to be magical, I want to be normal. And this book is kind of going through the process of Diana discovering that she can't push this part of herself out. Like, this is, it makes her different, but it also makes her special. And I'm excited to see where it goes. I also started the audiobook for Ava Evergreen, Semi-Magical Witch by Julie Abe, and I'm loving it so far. This book is so cute. I love the writing. It is middle grade, so it has a very, like, cozy middle grade vibe. And this book has illustrations in the top of the chapters that are very reminiscent of, like, Harry Potter or Nevermore, and I just love when middle grade is a little bit mixed media like that. It just makes it really special. So this book is all about Ava, who every time she does magic, she falls asleep. She's not as magical as all of the other witches in her town, and she just turned 12, which means that it is her chance to prove her worth, become an official witch by going on a quest. And when she goes to get her quest, she is told that she is not magical enough and they're going to take away her magic forever. And she uses her knowledge of the witch code to kind of say, no, that is not allowed. I deserve to prove myself. And so even though they don't think she'll be able to, they give her her quest. And this book follows her as she is going on this quest to prove that she can be a powerful witch, even if she's not as powerful as other people. So I'm really enjoying it so far. I can't wait to read a little bit more. I just started it, so I will update you once I read a little bit more about it. Hello, it is snack time for me. I'm home from work and I'm absolutely starving, so I'm gonna cut up this Sweet Tango apple. That's a good apple. It's a good one. Okay, updates, because I've been reading. I am about halfway through Ava Evergreen, Semi-Magical Witch. I'm loving it. It is very cozy. It is very magical, and it's really this beautiful, like, coming of age story for this witch where she's just trying to find her magic and earn her place in this magical world. Her mom is like the most powerful witch, so there's a lot to live up to. And she's really just making friends in this little village, and it's so cute. I love it. And there's an additional element of the town that she's like trying to save or help. This big storm comes every year called the culling, and it's unexpected, and it destroys the whole world in lots of different ways. But the town she came to is Alteri, and they are right on the water, so when the storm hits, they are always hit the hardest, and nobody has ever really thought to help them before. So Ava kind of has this additional challenge of not only earning her magic, but potentially saving this town from disaster. I'm loving this. The writing is great. It's cozy, it's warm, not a whole lot is happening, but it's really all about Ava becoming herself and learning to love herself. And then I'm halfway through a discovery of Witches, and this I'm obsessed with. I can't stop reading it. Anytime Matthew and Diana even glance at each other, I am like, yes, this is what I signed up for. I want this romance. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I am at this point now where they have kind of switched locations and like a lot more world building, like outside world, outside of Oxford is like pushing in on them. So this book has a lot of science and a lot of like scientific discussions. I am actually really enjoying that, and I wasn't sure how I would feel. I was kind of thinking, like, I'm not gonna like that they're talking about all the science stuff that I'm not understanding. But I think this book does a good job of helping me stay on track with them, and it has a good balance of scientific discussions and romantic moments. And the romance has been very slow. It was insta love, but as far as like the development of the romance, it's pretty slow. But I think that this book gives you plenty of reasons why the romance might develop slowly. I can see this. Right now it's reading like a 5-star, and I'm halfway through. So I'm very excited to see where it goes because I'm not quite sure what is going to happen. Okay, I am going to go take a walk because Ohio woke up 3 days ago and said it's fall, and I'm here for that. So I'm going to go change into some walking clothes, to get a little walk going, enjoy the outside before Brent gets home, and I'm going to read while I'm doing it.
Hello. Don't mind these little grass pieces hanging up right here. They are my grass because I'm laying outside. Because I don't know if you can tell or not, but it is an absolutely beautiful day. Everyone is out mowing their lawns, cars are driving by, and I'm just enjoying the fall atmosphere because the leaves are changing. You can kind of see trees behind me are changing, and I'm just happy to be outside. And I thought I would update you because I am like 75% of the way through Ava Evergreen, Semi-Magical Witch, and I'm still loving it. It is so wholesome, and the way Ava is coming up with ideas to help the town is just such a beautiful, and like, she's a sweet baby angel. All she wants to do is do good, and her motto is like do good by the town, and she's just trying so hard to help people, and she just keeps messing up. Like, things aren't necessarily going the way she wants them to, but she's still, because she is trying, it still ends up working out in just a different way than she expected. And I just love seeing it all come together, and how because she cares and wants to help, it's all actually working and like helping. But I only have about 100 pages left of this, not even, and it is getting intense. The culling, which is like that big storm I was telling you about, and that happens in the story, is on its way to Outtery, and Ava basically is like, I don't have enough magic to protect the whole town, and that was the mayor's only stipulation of her staying, was you have to protect us from the culling. And it came quicker and more intense than they expected it to, so she is kind of freaking out. She doesn't know what she's gonna do, and I'm interested to see what happens because she is just so thoughtful and she comes up with such creative ideas, so I can't wait. I love her as a character. And then let's talk about this big baby right here, because A Discovery of Witches, I'm obsessed. It has my favorite trope that happens in like romance novels, fantasy romance specifically. I'm not going to tell you because I think it might be a spoiler, but I absolutely love it. And I love that this essentially just feels like all of the Twilight books pushed into one, except the main character, Diana, is powerful, and rather than leaning on her vampire boyfriend to be powerful, she has her own power and, in fact, is like extremely powerful. And some of the twists we're getting as we find out more about her powers and what led her to where she is now and kind of what led her to not wanting to use her magic is just really interesting. And it has kind of turned into a murder mystery in some ways, but also an old murder mystery has popped up with the death of Diana's parents, because you know from the very beginning that her parents have died and that she's been living with her aunts. And I just think that it's being done really well. This kind of slow understanding of all the details of her past. We still don't know everything. And I'm like 75% of the way through. I'm so close to finishing this, and I only have like 150 pages left, and I'm freaking out a little bit because I absolutely love them. So I'm going to get back to reading it because I need to know what happens. It ended kind of on a cliffhanger last night when I stopped reading, so I'm going to get back.
Okay, friends, I'm here for my final update and my closing of this vlog because I finished both Ava Evergreen's Semi-Magical Witch and A Discovery of Witches, and so I'm here to tell you about my final thoughts. Let's start with Ava Evergreen because that's what I finished first. And I already returned my copy to the library, so I don't have it, but I'll put a picture here. This was exactly what I was looking for. It is super cute. It gave me all of the sweet, witchy, like very coming of age vibes. I loved the character arcs in the story. I had time in this book to really connect to Ava and to the characters, and I got to see kind of how she found her own place in this world. And the end of this book is actually the start of a series. So the end of this book kind of leaves us on a cliffhanger. I thought the way that her coming to terms with her powers was done really, really well, and I really loved the outcome of the story. But then the final part of the book really was a cliffhanger, and I'm anxious to pick up the next one because I kind of want to know what's gonna happen next. We got this like bit of information that really like expands the world that we are given in this first book, because the first book focused mostly on Outtery and she is exploring that town, and then it focuses a little bit on like her hometown, but this kind of finding that we have is expanding the world and giving us a setup for the next book to kind of explore. So I think it's going to be really, really great. And I really enjoyed this book and highly recommend it. Let's talk about A Discovery of Witches, because I gave this 5 stars. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with this. I bought my own copy, obviously. I bought this like beautiful paperback box set, and I love it. I love this book. I love Diana. I love Matthew. I love their relationship. I love that this book has a powerful woman at its center, but it's like a woman learning to love herself and learning to be powerful. She doesn't really know all the ins and outs of what's going on with her magic, but the last 100 pages of this book, the last like quarter of the book, was intense. A lot of stuff happened, and I think that where I think some people might get lost on this book is that there's a lot of information, a lot of build up, immediately cutting back to like the thing is over and they are exploring like scientific ideas behind something. But I loved that, and I just felt so smart after reading this, and I felt like this world is more realistic to me than really any other magical setting, because it's based in science and they're exploring DNA. It's very like 21st century witches, and I love that. And the setting of this kind of switches around throughout the book, and I loved all of the different settings. I love the discussions in this about futures and about human and non-human rights, like the rights of witches and vampires and demons and humans, and how people should be free to love who they love. And that kind of discussion in this, especially for a book written in 2011, is very beautiful, and I like the exploration of that, and I'm excited to see where that discussion goes in the future books, because it was kind of touched on in this, and I think that this kind of rebellion that is building up behind Diana and Matthew loving each other is going to be so satisfying to watch come to fruition. So I gave this 5 stars. I highly recommend it to anyone who was like a Twilight baby and who is now an adult and is looking for that same feeling. This is it. This was what I wanted. This was what I wanted. Okay, so let's wrap up what I read. And I took most of the books back to the library, so I'm gonna just like pop up pictures for all of them here. The first book I read was Witches, which was a comic book. And to be honest, I think I gave this 4 stars. I don't really remember much of it. So, I mean, I lost my memory of it throughout the 1 month. So I definitely think this is more of like a 3.5 stars. The artwork was great. It was spooky, but I just don't really remember much about it. So 3.5 stars. Then I finished The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow, and I gave this 5 stars. The writing was stunning. The messages were great. It was beautiful, and the characters were super, super memorable. Absolutely loved this one. Next, I read Payback's a Witch by Lena Harper, and I liked this one. It wasn't what I wanted, so I ended up giving it 4 stars, and I stand by that. Just a little bit of a marketing issue, but I still really enjoyed it. Then Ava Evergreen, Semi-Magical Witch, which I gave this 4.5 stars. I thought it was almost perfect, but 4.5 stars is fantastic. And then A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness, which I gave 5 stars. So if you want to read any of these books, I would highly recommend any of them, honestly. But my top choices would obviously be The Once and Future Witches and A Discovery of Witches, because they were my favorites. That is going to be all for me today, friends. Please like, comment, subscribe, share this video with anyone you think would enjoy it, and I will see you next time. Happy Halloween! Bye, friends.